We lost Jean, so we'll wait a second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Jamie Bova.
Here.
Lynn Underwood Segley.
Here.
Catherine E. Leonard. Catherine E. Leonard. Angela McCalla.
Here.
Justin S. McLaughlin.
Here.
Jean Marie Napolitano. Susan D. Taylor.
Here.
There is a quorum present, Madam Chair.
Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there is anyone who would like to speak at the Citizens Forum, I would ask that you please raise your hand, and there are two ways of doing that. One is by pressing the raise hand button in the Zoom application in the participants column, and the other, if you are on the phone, if you can please press *9. And Madam Clerk, could you please begin identifying and approving people to speak?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're actually echoing.
I'm having some technical difficulties.
I can see that. You're on your phone too.
So, Irene Glasser.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you please identify yourself with your name and address for the record? Ms. Glasser?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Irene Glasser, and I live at 11 Bull Street. I'm an anthropologist professionally, and I would like to talk to everybody about the 2020 census. So should I just begin? Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I've worked for the U.S. Census Bureau in research. My specialty in anthropology is homelessness and addictions, and I've been hired twice for improving the protocol for counting homeless people in 1990 and 2010. So I have a couple of publications having to do with the census as well as the commentary in Projo. But I'm here not to really talk about homeless count, which will actually begin mid-September with the what's called service-based enumeration and group quarter count. But today I just want to talk to you about overall Newport's response rate. So I prepared this document, which has actually a lot of links, and we can all, this is all public information. The census response rate gets updated every day, I believe Monday through Friday at 3:00 p.m. So anybody can go on to the site and actually get down to the census tract level, which includes a map of Newport, and see how each really census tract or neighborhood is doing. Actually, there was a really nice slide that was prepared for tonight, but at any rate, the census at the moment in Newport is 54% a response rate. This is called self-response rate. This is people who've actually, responded online. If a person has not responded yet to the census, they're going to be visited by an enumerator, a face-to-face contact, which will raise our count somewhat. But here's a few issues. One is that you probably know that Rhode Island is really threatened by having only one House seat, because there's only 435 House seats in the country. And when a state either loses population or doesn't have a full census count, other states could basically get their House seat. So it's very serious for Rhode Island. Also, another thing that's extremely important is money. Rhode Island gets approximately $3.8 billion from the federal government, and this is based on our census numbers. In terms of what Newport gets based on the census numbers, I know that a lot of funds are apportioned to Newport based on the census, which is a 10-year census. The first census, as you probably know, started in 1790. This is part of our Constitution, to count every person living in the U.S. every 10 years. Citizen, non-citizen, whatever. Everyone needs to be counted. So, of course, this year has been especially challenging with the pandemic. There was a threat of a citizenship question. The administration didn't fully fund the census, kind of the leading up to the census wasn't fully funded. But here we are with only until September 30th to get everybody counted. So nationally, this was as of Monday at around 3:30 p.m. So nationally, the count is up to 64.4. Rhode Island is 62.2. Newport on Monday was 53.90. And then we have each census tract. And what you'll notice is that basically there's only a couple of census tracts that are, let me just make sure I have this right, better than, let's say, better than Rhode Island, or if you say 53.9%, then we could say that those tracts that are under are in trouble. But really, the Census Bureau considers anything less than 75% a hard to count, either census tract or city or state. In Rhode Island, the way this is, we are not the worst in terms of response, but not the best. There's 3 cities that are doing worse than we are, and I believe there's 5 cities doing better, or 4 cities doing better, I should say. So what I'm asking the city council is if you could think about ways to get out, people to respond. People can respond online up until September 30th. There's also various mobile sites around. These are called mobile questionnaire assistance sites. And there has been a lot of work done on the census. The Rhode Island Foundation funded some local organizations to help people with the census. And some of those, I think, have worked pretty well, or I should say very well. For example, TAM, Martin Luther King, Acción Latina have actually helped people literally fill out the census. Acción Latina helps translate, but these other places also directly help people fill out the census. So that's really good. And there are things afoot. There's a phone bank where people have been trained to call Newporters to remind them about the census. In the document I gave to you, there's a lot of links, including directly how to answer the census. I mean, if you just double click on it, you get right to the census. There's also guidance from the Census Bureau on how to answer the census if this is your seasonal home, what they call seasonal home or secondary home. Now, admittedly, if you answer the census, this is not about your seasonal home. This does not actually add to our numbers in Newport, but it does add to our response rate. So I think a lot of people don't realize if they have a second home in Newport, they're supposed to fill out the census form. So the question will be, how many people lived here on April 1st? And the answer would be 0. Because if it's a seasonal home and presumably you live someplace else, you can't be counted in more than one state. And the Census Bureau will catch that. So in terms of, for example, we have track 410, which we believe is more or less the 5th ward, and 411, which I think is maybe the point. So when you go on the map, you can actually see the census response rate, the self-response rate. You can also see what happened in 2010, and all our numbers are less than 2010 right now. And you can see more or less the map of what track is where. But to be really accurate, I suggest that you can go on to something called the Census Track Finder. So for example, if I want to see how my census track is doing, I just type in my own address and it will tell me what census tract I live in, because I don't think I would not know that off the top of my head. We do have weekly meetings that Sarah Atkins facilitates, and right now most people on the meeting are the people who have received funding, the organizations that have received funding. And we also have 2 social justice committees from congregations, Toro Synagogue, of which I'm a member, and the Unitarian Church. So we have volunteers from those 2 congregations, as well as the organizations that have gotten funding. But I do think this takes a lot of leadership, because, I mean, even if we are up to 54 today, that would mean, what, 46% of the Newporters have not been counted. I don't think any of us wants to lose money based on a low census count. I mean, I'm glad to answer questions.
Thank you, Irene. Councilor Leonard?
Great job, Irene. I can tell you that I received a call from a census taker actually yesterday, and she gave me a few names and asked me about them. And I can usually tell if somebody's a seasonal resident or a full-time resident. So I'm happy to help facilitate if somebody wants to call me.
Yep. So I think one of the things that I noticed is that when you talk to people in general about the census, I mean, it's understandable how this would be pushed to the back because of all our other issues like the pandemic. But yeah, people need help. I say to some of my friends who I know are seasonal, have you filled out the census for this home in Newport? And they say, am I supposed to? And I say, yes. I don't think that's really the major problem. You know, I think we have lots of people who live here, renters. You could be a renter. I mean, it just goes to every household unit. Whether you own it, rent it, whether you live in an attic, a basement, every single household unit has been canvassed and should have received the ID. Oh, I also want to say something I think important. If people by this time have misplaced or thrown away their census ID, which I think probably they have because it came in March, that's not a problem. You just go on to the response, mycensus.gov, and you just answer it via your address. Another thing is if a person's homeless, they can also check homeless. This is the first time since 1790 that we've had online.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Councilor McCalla?
Hi. I also wanted to say thank you, Irene. That was really informative. I think one of the biggest, there was so much to take away, but one of the biggest things that resonates with me too, I think most people don't recognize that, you know, our seasonal renters also are super important in this initiative, and that their input matters as well. But with that being said, that Joe, I know that you and I have kind of talked preliminarily about it because it's been the same concern that I was having as well, just learning more about this. And I'm just wondering, in terms of our capacity on robocalls, could we essentially use the robocalls to get every resident, I mean, as a way of engagement for that?
Well, I had the same conversation with him as well. I think yesterday morning or maybe the day before. I don't recall, but the answer is yes. It's simply, the answer is yes. So I will consider it, and it seems to me to be a good tactic, if you will. And if it will help, it'll help.
Great.
That's great. That's great to hear. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Councilor McCalla.
Oh, sorry, one more. Irene, my question goes to you. In terms of a robocall, is one sufficient, or are we, like, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't, I think that'd be very impressive to have a robocall, you know, get them with the weather, food ban, you know, issues about food during the pandemic. They're really helpful. I'm not a professional in marketing, so I don't know, but I think there are people who are professionals in this. There's probably some guidance on it. I think the tools, you know, to give people like my census.gov so that they know exactly what they're looking for. Luckily, they have made this form. You just go to that, click that, and it takes you right to the response form.
And I think that that's something that the group that you were mentioning that meets with Sarah Atkins, you guys could work on determining the script and
That's a
if
great
you did
idea.
more than once.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We're just sitting down with Sarah, you know, is the simpler the better. I mean, the message needs to be really, really simple. And also, Sarah now has a schedule for these mobile questionnaire assistants, people who come to Newport in various places. I think there's going to be some people at Ashmart, which is very good since that's near a place that, you know, has a low count. They've been at Leo's. They've been with the MLK Food Bank. They've been at Pell School, I believe Pell School, Farmers Market. And I do want to tell you also that they're open on our call every Monday is Deborah Smith from the U.S. Census Bureau, and she coordinates these mobile people, you know, mobile enumerators. So she would send them out. She would send them out to wherever you think is good, in front of City Hall. And then there's a group of volunteers who could show up and help, you know, bring people over.
Great.
So it's kind of open-ended in terms of where and when they might be located. And that's a great thing.
Jamie, if I could jump in.
Sorry. So there's actually a few people who've had their hand up,
Okay, go ahead.
Justin, but after I can.
I just want to make a comment relative to something I just said, which is on our city website right now, it actually lists all of those locations where they're doing the fill out the census meet and greets. So you just rattled them off, but they're listed on our city website right now.
Great.
Tom's bringing it up now.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor McCalla, if you are all set, I'm going to move to Councilor Segley.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Irene.
Thank you.
Hi, Irene. Thank you for doing this and giving us all this information. This is completely anecdotal, but I know someone who's lived in the house for over 60 years, and she's did not receive a questionnaire. Is that something that has been quite common, or is that something that is unusual?
I think it's somewhat unusual. So what we say is if you don't, first of all, she can go on mycensus.gov and just fill out her, all it says is it asks you for your address.
Mm-hmm. Okay. She doesn't have a computer, so I'll help her do that.
You can do it through your smartphone. You can help her through your smartphone.
Yeah, I'll help her out, but it was just something that I thought was a little bit curious that she didn't receive.
Well, because this is online, maybe the packet we got in the mail doesn't look like it used to. You know, we used to get kind of a bigger packet because you had to fill things out. This was just like a little folded over thing that says census ID number. So I can see, personally, I can see how one could easily ignore it or not see it just by mistake.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you can hear me. I'm just going to jump in for a second to help you, Lynn, with your question. And that is, hi, it's Sarah, the Community Resilience Specialist. There are also phone numbers, and there are phone lines on the census website that for 12 different languages. So she might be much more comfortable just calling the English line, and that's very helpful for elderly people because there's someone on the other end of the line to guide them through the process.
Thank you, Sarah.
That would help her a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Segley. Councilor Napolitano? Councilor Napolitano, you're muted.
I was just going to say some of the things they've already said, but I think we've got to make it easy for some people when it comes up on the website, rather than have something canned from the census. What I think we should be doing is giving them the direction, go to census.gov, go to My Census, put in your address, fill out the form. This is why we could lose a representative.
Yes.
We could lose money coming to the state of Rhode Island. I mean, it really, you know, some people don't realize the connection of the census with what it could do for the state of Rhode Island. And I think that's really important, and that we should get that out there in real easily understood language.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind doing it every day till September 30th. I mean, having something out there, just a short blurb on the city website.
Oh yeah, I mean, we should have it on the front page right when you come on.
Yeah.
We might. I haven't checked.
We have been pushing it on our social networking tools, and it has, I think, to move it to the front page would reflect the urgency to the city.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that Tom Shevlin could do fairly easily, so that would be great. Councilor Taylor?
Thank you. Everything that Jean said, I'm right with you, Jean. It's losing a representative. It's funding for the state, for the city. It's getting counted. And I think with all of the messaging, we should be throwing everything we have at it. And that means official city messaging, and each one of us should be reaching out to our networks. Irene, thank you. This was the best presentation I've heard yet on the census, and I've been passionate about it from the get-go. I just want to make it easy for people to find the map of the track so that you can find out how your neighborhood is doing, or reach out to people in neighborhoods that aren't doing well. So I would love it if you would leave us with that before you go.
Right.
But the last thing I just want to say is, we want to, with the messaging, we want to make it normal. It's like filling out the census is like paying your rent. It's something that you just got to do. It's only every 10 years, but you've got to do it. And we want to make it as easy as possible.
Right. In terms of finding that map, so anybody at some other time, I can help walk you through it on a Zoom call, because you get the national, you get the state, you get the city, and then you get the track. It's not that it's so hard, but you have to have a little bit of patience.
Okay.
But the thing that I'm kind of obsessed, so I kind of check this out like almost every day, and it's also a good way to see when there's movement.
Yeah.
Because it is updated every day at 3.
Which is, I didn't realize that either. So that's great information. Thank you, Irene, for sharing that. And I think that we could also look at putting out some sort of message from the council as a group, showing our that we really want all our residents to participate and fill out the census as well, just to help get more attention on it. I think that would be great.
We'd appreciate that a lot. We've actually put together a small inventory of what we call message ambassador videos from local community leaders, and we would really appreciate videos from you all. We have, there's something that can be done literally in 20 seconds on your cell phone, and can be emailed to Turning Around Ministries to be added to the inventory. We even have a script I believe we've sent you in the past that you can follow, that makes it particularly easy.
Great, that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you, Irene, again, for taking the time to give us this presentation and to add more awareness. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. We have a list of our current programs that we're pursuing right now, and I can forward that to the council if you'd like.
Great,
We're hitting
thank
this
you.
on a number of different levels.
Can I jump in just to say that it's 35 days from today to September 30th?
Yeah. It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a contest between tracks.
Oh,
Yeah.
the track that finishes first gets plowed first this winter.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon that the tracks that we were paying particular attention to because we had gotten funding to reach out to hard to count communities are the ones that have gotten better response. So it's sort of the rest of the city needs to catch up to those. And we'd really like to bring the numbers on the point and around the 5th ward up.
Can I just
I mean, I think that speaks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to say, who's ever doing this, hover, if you want to hover over the color part of it, just have your cursor hover. There you go. Okay, so when you hover over each of these tracks, it will say how it's doing today in terms of the self-response. And you see, it also tells you how it was in 2010. So just hover over each of these and you'll see it will come up. You don't click it, just hover. Yep, there you go.
Well, and I think that really goes to show the importance of the outreach and how it does make an impact, that those communities where you guys have done more outreach, we've seen a greater response rate in. Great. Well, thank you again, Irene. Thank you again, Sarah. We all really appreciate it.
Sure, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if there was anyone else who had previously had your hand up, you may have to raise your hand again because I had seen some hands that had been up previously who have gone down. But once again, if you do want to speak in the Citizens Forum, you press raise hand in the Zoom application or *9 if you're on the phone. Okay, seeing no additional hands up, I think we can move on.
The consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent calendar in its entirety with the exception of item H, the communication from Hillary B.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Sedley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
And Madam Chair, I move that we receive the communication from Hillary B. and approve her request subject to details being worked out with city administration.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. And before we begin discussion, I would like to see if Hillary B is in attendance. Can we check that? It does not appear that she is on the call from what I can see. And so is there discussion on the council on this item? I will say I have spoken with the city manager earlier today, and neither him nor I have heard back from her since the last council meeting. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did speak with Hillary B. on Friday, Hillary Block, and she was in the process of reaching out to other community members to try to develop the substance of this proposal, and I was hoping to hear back from her today. So I Yeah, not being able to hear back from her. I would like to hear back from her before I turn it over to working out the details with the city administration.
Yeah, I agree. But you actually just reminded me, Councillor Taylor, I would like to ask if we can, if we do continue this, if we can make a correction on the docket that it's from Hillary Block and actually have her full last name on there. I didn't realize until recently that that was not her, that B was not her last name. I thought it was B-E. So I think that would be a good note to have on there. Is there further discussion on the council on this? Okay, then I think I'm gonna make a motion that we continue this item till the next meeting, which is September 9th, I believe.
Mhm.
Yes, so I make a motion that we continue the September 9th council meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion to continue passes.
Application for a farmer's market license, Aquidneck Community Table, Aquidneck Growers Market, Pell Elementary School parking areas.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the application by the Aquidneck Community Table to hold their farmers markets on Saturdays, Saturday mornings from 9 to noon through October 31.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the council? Councillor McCalla?
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Other than, you know, go farmers market.
Thank you. Councillor Segley?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to express my support for this. I know that at times I have an issue with the location at Memorial Boulevard, but only from a safety standpoint. But I wholeheartedly endorse the farmers market, and I think this is a good location.
Thank you, Councillor Segley. And I just wanted to ask briefly of the city manager, is this there's no changes from what's been happening, correct? Like this, I know that this has been ongoing and it was sort of approved by you as part of the COVID response.
Changes in terms of we
What's,
state guidelines and the growers.
no, I just
market
mean in terms of what's already been happening. Is there changes in this application?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to pipe up because I was speaking with the Aquidneck Community Table in the early days back in March and April, and they wanted to provide stability and predictability to their growers, their farmers, their merchants. And so, but they were very concerned about what the guidelines would be under COVID, and they worked very, very hard to establish the protocols. The big difference is if you look at the map, they now have, I'm not counting them, but I'm going to say it looks like over 20 vendors, whereas when they started out, they had 6 in those first few weeks. So I'm really, really happy to see that it seems to be thriving, and I think they're a great addition at that location.
Great, thank you very much.
Go shop there.
If there's no further discussion, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on a new Class A indoor entertainment license, L&B Associates LLC, DBA Stoneacre.
This is a public hearing, the second hearing on a new entertainment license, an indoor entertainment license for the Stoneacre Garden at Swinburne Row. And if there's anyone from the public who would like to be heard, if you are in attendance via Zoom, the Zoom application, you can press the raise hand button in the participants column, or if you are on the phone and would like to be heard, you can press *9.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the application.
Second.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Councillor Leonard?
I'd just like to ask that, or confirm that this would be doors and windows closed. I know it goes from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. But I see the number of instruments, and I know that they're in a neighborhood that allows it totally. But I know we do have actually the sound ordinances also. So I would just hope that I won't put it in the form of a motion or an amendment, but I would hope that they follow the sound ordinances.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Napolitano?
Yeah, I just want to state that indoor entertainment isn't allowed right now anywhere. However, we're granting the license in contemplation of sometime they'll be able to use that. But they have to follow all the COVID plans or have to present a COVID plan to the manager.
They do have to follow the COVID plans, but the indoor entertainment is actually allowed currently, but it is still within the COVID rules and the restrictions on the number of people in the establishment. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Second reading of an ordinance amending chapter 10.24.030 entitled Special Parking Limits During Certain Hours on Certain Streets.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this amendment, which would delete same street east side, 20 feet, beginning at a point 10 feet south of Hammond Street and proceeding south a distance of 20 additional feet.
Second.
Remove that from the 15-minute parking zone restrictions.
There is a motion and a second. This ordinance change comes from a change from a previously business establishment to a residential establishment, and as such, the new residential occupant in front of that space would like to remove the 15-minute parking zone, so it would be the same parking restrictions as the remainder of the street. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from Turner Scott, denial of alteration permit application, Newport Country Club.
This item is a communication from Turner Scott, the attorney for the Newport Country Club, and in consultation with the city manager, I am going to move that we continue this item to allow for a little more time for the council to understand the process of what's going on there, and also to allow for the city manager to be in discussion with the attorney and the Newport Country Club.
I second.
Thank you,
The
Councillor
motion.
Taylor. Councillor Leonard?
I just have a question that I didn't understand. I read this carefully, and it seems like the engineer denied the request, And it seems like the utilities department approved the request for a new above ground meter enclosure. So then I looked through it because I was trying to figure out if in fact this was in the public right of way, which I think is what we're talking about for the city manager to look at. But it seemed kind of odd to me in reading this that one department would deny and the other department would approve. And let me see what I'm looking at. It's for a new fire service and water service renewal.
Yeah,
And
so I'm going to ask Kate. I think that the city manager can give more info. And I also, that there seems to be in this letter what we need, that we would need some actual documentation and evidence on what actually occurred. And so until we have that, I do think that it's something that we wouldn't be able to really understand the full scope of. But I will ask the city manager if he can just explain it a little bit at a high level.
Well, the high level is I haven't looked at it very closely. I need to discuss with Mr. Bean, and hence I'm requesting the matter be continued until I can get into the details with the department heads that are otherwise involved in this. And indeed, as you know, my MO is usually I go to visit these sites, and I haven't been out to this particular place, but this does take on the connotation of an evidentiary matter, and I have yet to discuss it with the solicitor. I'm not so sure he's familiar with it.
Right. Councilor Leonard?
the reason I even asked the question is because it says a new fire service, and I'm concerned about safety. And, you know, I think that this should have been looked at and maybe coordinated with the departments before it came to us so that we had the answers.
I agree, and I think that's why we need to continue, because we don't have the evidence that we need to really be able to make an assessment. Councilor Napolitano?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's important that it's reviewed by management first and then explained to us, which is why we really shouldn't even be discussing it at this point and moving forward with the vote to continue.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going, excuse me, I'm going to hold the roll call vote on continuance. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Memorandum from the city manager, recommendations on short-term traffic solutions.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive this information from the city manager.
Second?
There is a motion and a second to receive. I am going to give the floor to the city manager to talk to the memo that we were given and also some of the work that has gone on since the last council meeting.
Yes, thank you, Joe Nicholson. I'm going to ask Mr. Riccio to do most of the discussion here. Since the last meeting, in addition to the memorandum you have, we met with Councilor McCall and talked things through, and I think we had a very, very productive discussion. I've been out to the area, and I must have driven it 20 times in the last week or so. But I want Bill to add, maybe go through the highlights of his memorandum and indicate what else we've discussed with Councilor McCall and to give you guys a good thought process on this. Bill, you there?
Hi, everybody. So essentially, we've gone ahead and gotten all of the crosswalks repainted, as we usually try to do before school starts. We've installed some new pedestrian signage along that hillside corridor, and we installed new speed limit signs on Malbone and Girard, as this memorandum indicates. The other piece of the puzzle is we're continuing conversations with the DOT. Our Safe Routes to School project that targets Hillside Avenue is coming online as of October of this year. So it's in federal fiscal year 21, which is October 20 to September 21, at which time we plan to install the last connection of a missing sidewalk along Hillside from Bellevue to Admiral Kalfas. And then we're hoping to do some additional items along Hillside in what we term as not so much a school zone, but a neighborhood school district.
Great, thank you, Mr. Riccio. Councilor Leonard? Councilor Leonard, you're muted.
Thank you. When we had discussed this at the last meeting and this continued, I had also asked about Ruggles Avenue because that's a way to school also. And there are no sidewalks. And I think that this Ruggles in particular and Harrison, because Harrison has the pathway and the roadway that goes into the backside of Rogers High School, that these warrant discussion too, if you're going to talk about safe routes to school projects. And I'd like to see or know why those two roads were not included.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. Mr. Riccio, can you, is there a larger area of the city that is included in the safe routes to school, or is it primarily focused on the area in this memo?
The original safe routes to school application was submitted several years ago, and when it gets placed in a condition where the actual program is a number of years in length. So after several years of waiting, the original project was Bedlow and Hillside. If you recall, about, I think it's 2 years ago now, we reconstructed Hillside and we said, we can't wait. So we funded the sidewalks on Bedlow, and now we're looking to this money to make the final connection and then extend a little farther up Hillside to address some of these neighborhood traffic calming concerns that were brought forward. But you can't just add other roads without going through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Riccio. And I think that if we do want to look at different roads with a similar lens to what is addressed in this memo, it would be something that we should be brought forward in a resolution similar to how this was originally brought forward. Councilor McCalla?
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth in that sense. I think that the resolution, just to bring it back, the resolution calls specifically for Hillside, Girard, Melbourne, and Leo Terrace. But I will say, Kate, in the recommendations, one of the recommendations I think, Bill, that your department had suggested is that we consider an official establishment by ordinance of a school zone. So that may be something that, there may be in that sense, like an opportunity for us to be able to further the discussion in that sense. Bill, if you can just talk a little bit about, so I know in terms of Hillside, there's been more traction on that piece. But in terms of Melbourne, can you talk a little bit about your assessment there?
Yeah, I mean, in the memo, the recommendation was just to install additional speed limit signs. Obviously, we know there are no sidewalks from Admiral Kalfas down to the Sheffield area, and then and then they go from there. That's a really restricted area as to what can or could be done. When the city manager, myself, and Angela met, we also talked about the Malbone Admiral Kalfas intersection, which, as we collectively know, is part of the Pell Bridge realignment project. So we don't know what will actually get implemented there, but it is in the overall project area map, if you will.
Okay, and then, so just to further, as part of our last discussion too, you know, residents were really calling for a need for more stop signs, as like speeding was an issue. You had addressed about sidewalks. I just want to know, in terms of Melbourne, residents are reporting that even if you're like bikers are having to weave in and out of driveways to get out of people's way in terms of curbing. You know, the issues are, you know, huge tour buses and semi trucks are actually going through. And then I've heard from a lot of residents in regards to a stop sign over between Melbourne and Burdick. That seems to be like a really big area where folks are kind of advocating and saying that it's really dangerous and that a stop sign would really help. Or I've also heard a suggestion where getting a mirror on the pole so that people can kind of see in terms of visualization. That tends to be a big problem. And so that happens on Burdick, at the bottom of Burdick and at the top of Garfield Street as well. So I know that this has been, you know, this was something that you, Joe, and myself had discussed as well. And I'm just wondering if there was any further discussion, you know, regarding, you know, what some of the residents were talking about specifically on Melbourne.
One of the things we discussed in our meeting was in the Burdick Garfield area, there is a private hedge that is very tall. That seems to, over the years, be the basis of complaints. We need to find a way to get that property owner to drop the height of that hedge to allow a better sight line to come out.
Mr. Riccio, just to ask the question really briefly on the hedge, I mean, can't we work with the property owner? And I mean, if it's impeding sight, don't we I would think we would have the ability to work with them to ensure the safety of that roadway.
I would assume the same thing through our zoning officers, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Continue, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Bill. Was there anything else you wanted to add? So
no.
Okay.
I want to add things in that the school zone and what we're referring to as a school district, as we're trying to come up with some creativity in terms of designating an area as district travelway as opposed to a school zone. A school zone has some special connotations under state law and indeed are somewhat limited. So we want to try to expand that concept a little bit more, and so we're going to work on that. And we've also talked about other traffic calming devices and maybe looking at a pilot program along along Hillside, a couple of traffic calming devices. One of them, which we talked about very briefly, we haven't matured the concept yet, but not speed bumps or speed humps, but within the context of a school district zone, if you will, speed pillows, which allow for drainage and are, but also allow for the on the vehicles, the larger emergency vehicles. So we're looking at those concepts as well. But remember, the resolution has in very quick fashion to come up with some things in a quick fashion, which we did. There are both short-term things here and there are long-term things. Malbone Road, for the most part, is a long-term issue, which obviously needs some in terms of sidewalk. I went and viewed the hedge. It's not really a hedge on Malbone. It's just, I don't know what you describe it. It's some type of big bush that impedes the visibility going, I guess you would be going, coming from Admiral Kalfas going along Malbone on the right, and then it also creates some problems in visibility coming out of Garfield Street. So we can work on that, but there's both short-term and long-term things, and you know, the speed pillows, for example, are somewhere in the middle there, and something that Bill and I are kind of having or speed cushions, whatever you want to call them, are having a little bit of a discussion and debate about those as well, as to how to construct them, how to fund them, and things like that. But it would be a nice area, actually, to almost do a pilot program with these, because, and not get too caught up in them, but tie them to, you know, schools, if you will.
Thank you.
Yep. I think one of the things that I also learned that I wanted to just kind of highlight too is, you know, in regards to implementing infrastructure, I guess like one of the things that I learned was, you know, I'm thinking, you know, what's the big deal with, you know, speed bumps, just putting a speed bump and speed hump or whatever, some type of, you know, traffic calming mechanism. And I think Bill, as well as Joe, kind of did a good job to say, well, it's not as simple as that. Like, we have to think about, you know, access to for bikers, and also how does this affect the storm drains, and you know, all of that stuff. So it was a learning curve, and I felt like it was a pretty like fruitful discussion overall. You know, I'm happy with the current recommendations, but I think I want to say it's a good start, but we'll continue to keep having these conversations for sure.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla. Councilor Leonard?
Well, we're talking about speed humps or bumps or whatever. And I'm going to say it one more time, because the two streets in my ward that are like the Indianapolis 500 are not getting so much attention, even though both are near schools. So that's part of the city. We talk about WUN Newport. I want to see these two streets as part of the discussion.
You should put it in a resolution.
I discussed it at the resolution we had on the table before.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. The resolution wasn't amended to include those streets, and I would be happy to work with you on a resolution to specifically address those streets. I have heard complaints in that area as well, so I do think that you're correct that we need to work on those streets, and I think we should put it forward as a resolution, so we can have
I had amended that. I'm pretty positive.
It wasn't amended.
If not, then I will definitely put it in again.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. Councilor Taylor?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the notion of green and complete streets, because people have been asking me lately, so what you keep saying, green and complete streets, what does it mean? And you know, Kate, when you bring this up, it's the idea that we're looking at all the streets in the city as we do any type of work on them. We want to do the kind of planning that Angela was describing came from Mr. Riccio and Mr. Nicholson. And we do appreciate the holistic look at, you know, when you think about, let's put a speed bump down, surely that would solve the problem. It's not just that. You want to be considering all the aspects. I know that this revision is not doing the full array of considerations that could come up with the notion of green and complete streets, but it is the notion that it's all interwoven, and you don't want to end up with the unintended consequences.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor McCalla, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, sorry. I just, is it possible, Bill, to put some stop signs on Melbourne?
Mr. Riccio, if you are speaking, you are muted. There you go.
Is it, so as we discussed at our meeting, the city uses the manual on uniform traffic control devices, which is essentially, it lays out a process that establishes warrants. There's a variety of warrants that need to be met based on traffic numbers, et cetera, et cetera. If there's a specific location that residents want to look at the installation of a stop sign, I suggest that the residents follow the city's policy of sending the request through the ITC so it can get properly evaluated in accordance with the warrants of the MUTCD, so that the ITC can prepare a written recommendation that'll go through the council for or against that installation.
Thank you, Mr. Riccio. Councillor Napolitano?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, because you have to go, well, you should be going to the ITC, particularly a street like Malbone. I live on Malbone. I know people that don't want to see stop signs and people that would like to see sidewalks. So I think it really requires more discussion with the people that actually live here on Malbone.
Right, and the ITC does help with that, like you're,
It's
Mr.
a
Riccio
good
said.
venue to go to, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, as someone who lives right off of Malbone, sometimes I think it would be a good idea. Other times I think it wouldn't, to have the stop sign. So it really depends on the full plan presented by the ITC and by the Public Works. Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you. I would just suggest that Councillor McCullough's made her point that I think she's representing the neighborhood when she asks for a stop sign. And Bill's making valid points about the rules. I think we have the request. We should just send it to the ITC without going through another step of making the residents ask for something. We know what the issue is. Let's ask the ITC to provide the information that we need.
Good point, Councillor McLaughlin. I believe, before we wrap up on this, I do believe that there is someone from the public who would like to be heard. Madam Clerk, can we recognize them?
Yes, Rex LeBeau.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, my name's Rex LeBeau. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I live at 118 Ruggles Avenue. And I'm just wanted to say that I'm really happy that the conversation is happening. I commute through all those streets mentioned, Malbone, Hillside. I go through there all the time, and it is incredibly dangerous. I've altered my bike routes to so that way I mostly am just crossing very dangerous streets like Malbone. But yeah, I will probably become a pancake at some point on a bad day. So yeah, I really would like to echo that. I feel like infrastructure changes that actually cause drivers to drive slower rather than, say, a speed limit sign that may or may not be enforceable and might be dependent on whether or not there's a police presence. I think design the street so that way it slows the cars down, and maybe there are more innovative solutions than stop signs and speed pillows. But yeah, I think safety, especially in areas where there are so many families and we want our kids to be able to walk and bike to school so that way they don't have to ride a bus and get COVID. It's just, yeah, we're living in a very dangerous time, and being able to exist outside safely, I think, is something that the city is obligated to do. So thank you for continuing to listen to residents on that, and thank you for having this resolution.
Thank you very much. If
Mayor?
there is, yes, Mr. Riccio.
Can I just get clarification on Malbone? Councilor McCalla mentioned earlier and then Councilor McLaughlin asked it just to go to ITC. I just would like clarification. What I heard was the request is for a stop sign at Burdick. Is that what I should refer to the ITC, or is there another location?
I'll just reread the whole thing. Melbourne just overall needs more stop signs in general on that road due to speeders. Obviously, the issues, there are no sidewalks. Bikers have to weave in and out of driveways to get out of people's ways in order to get out of the vehicle's way, so to speak. You know, again, that there are huge tourist bus and semi trucks going through. A stop sign at Burdick, between Melbourne and Burdick. There are visibility issues at the bottom of Burdick and at the top of Garfield Street. There was one person who suggested to me getting a mirror on the pole as even a temporary solution in terms of trying to address some type of visibility, and again, speed bumps as well. Like, can we look into that?
Mr. Riccio, would it be possible to just have an assessment or an analysis made of Melbourne to see if there are areas where it would benefit from a stop sign rather than looking just at a specific intersection?
Well, here's the challenge. A stop sign, a traffic signal, whatever the appropriate item is a form of an intersection traffic control. So we would never put a stop sign where there isn't an intersection. So
there's just multiple intersections.
We could study every intersection between Van Zant and Admiral Kalfas if that's what the council wants us to do. I'm just looking for the direction to keep the financial implications to a minimum.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Riccio. I think that it's difficult to say. None of us are experts on where the best location to look at where a stop sign would be the most beneficial. If my druthers would be to have the intersections at least between Van Zant and Bedlow, which those are the only intersections really on that stretch, looked at for additional stop signs. But I would be open if anyone on the council disagreed with that area as being looked at.
I mean, why don't we just keep it blanketed in terms of Melbourne, like studying Melbourne in every intersection that comes through? So
that's what I was saying.
Oh.
I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we can. I will meet with the director, and we will meet out in the field as we've been doing a lot of times on a lot of things. I got the gist of it. I think between the two of us, we can figure out and report back to you issues related to Malbone Road and stop signs and anything else that's related to it.
Yeah.
I think the issue really stop signs and visibility. Those are kind of the two takeaways here.
Yep.
And I do see some visibility issues, and we can talk about the stop signs.
Okay, I'm going to hold the roll call vote on this memo, on the receipt of this memo. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard? Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Action number 5943.
Madam Chair, I move that we award the contract for the Newport Public Schools boiler control systems to Connecticut Temperature Controls, LLC.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and this item would be for work at all 4 school buildings: Rogers, NACTech, Thompson, and Pell. Is there any discussion on the council on this item?
Yes, could I just mention,
Councilor Stegley?
when we read these council actions, could we say how much is actually being spent on these items? Because I think that's important to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So this item is a total of $237,486. And that is the work as well as project contingencies. And
I'd like to add that it's important to note that it is currently budgeted.
yes. And then there is a further breakdown in the body, in the documentation that comes with it that breaks it down across the 4 school buildings. And for Rogers, the cost would be $44,530. NACTEC is $52,606. Thompson is $66,152. And Pell is $52,698. So there is work that is needed at all 4 buildings. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Stegley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard? Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn as council and reconvene as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Stegley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Class A Sunday selling license renewal, Newport Wine Cellar LLC, DBA Newport Wine Cellar, 5 Merton Road.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the application for a renewal of the Sunday selling license by the Newport Wine Cellar LLC.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Stegley? Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from Ruby Reese, Unity 3 LLC.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive this communication.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to receive. This is a communication from Mr. Rui Reese regarding the beverage license, the BL license that Unity 3, his LLC owns. And I don't know if Mr. Reese is on this call, but I can sum up that he is requesting another extension because although him and his attorney have been in discussions with people to acquire the license, it's been slowed down due to the pandemic. And as we've previously discussed, we've been trying to, as a council, as a body, we've been trying to really work and ensure that we are aware of all of the locations of the various liquor licenses in the city that are not currently connected with an established and open business. And so Mr. Reese is requesting that we allow him more time on this. Is there discussion on the council on that? Mr. Bean?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that we're coming up on, for all liquor licenses, the December 1st renewals. I think the clerk starts sending out the renewal packages in September or early October, and I think the council starts looking at them in November because they have to be renewed by December 1st. So for this, and I believe the next two communications, you are going to be looking at a renewal of these licenses in a few months in any event.
Thank you.
And I think with COVID, there are legitimate reasons why they weren't able to do a lot of activity on these licenses. There's probably not much of a market of people looking to establish new restaurants.
Thank you, Mr. B. And I agree. And I think that in this letter, it does really detail the work that's been being done. And I do think it's reasonable for us to allow more time. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote on the receipt. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from Turner Scott on behalf of Rumline LLC.
Madam Chair, I move that we receive this communication from Turner Scott regarding the status of a Class BV alcoholic beverage license.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and this is the same thought as the previous communication where the license holder is asking for additional time because they are attempting to sell the license to another establishment, but it's just taking more time due to establish the license in another location, but it's taking more time due to some of the issues with COVID, as well as they are working with CRMC and other departments on actually getting the property ready. I think similar to the previous communication, it is reasonable that we would have an extension allowed. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote on this item. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion
And
passes.
Councilor Taylor.
Oh,
votes
Councillor
aye.
Taylor. Sorry. You can always tell we're getting near the end of the meeting when I start accidentally skipping councillors. The motion passes.
Communication from Jeremiah C. Lynch III on behalf of 8 to 10 Broadway, Newport LLC.
And Madam Chair, I move that we receive this communication from Jeremiah Lynch regarding the status of the Class BV alcoholic beverage license.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and again, this communication is in the same vein as the previous two, where the license holder is actively trying to establish the license in a new location, but is having delays and issues due to COVID. Is there any discussion on this item by the council? Hearing none, I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners and reconvene as council.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. I'll hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla? Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
COVID-19 status update.
This is the weekly status update from the city manager. So I will give the floor to Mr. Nicholson to give us the update.
Yes, I'll be brief. I will tell you that every time that I see a silver lining in something that we're doing or something that's going on with and how we're progressing with in the context of COVID, I look at a newspaper like Boston Globe, head Boston Globe today is the Biogen conference tied to 20,000 virus cases. I haven't gone through the whole article yet, but I guess my theme that occurs to me is we can't get complacent with how things are in Newport or anywhere else with regard to combating this virus. And the article struck me, and I know I had a discussion with, very, very brief discussion with Justin about it today, and it's striking. And I'll send you all the article tomorrow. But with regard to the numbers, there were 68 new cases just yesterday. The 3-day average of new cases is 60 in Rhode Island. Somewhat of a meaningless number. There's been a large number of tests that you're all aware of, but there's 80 people that were hospitalized based upon what was reported today. Yesterday was reported that 87 people were hospitalized. In Newport in the last week, we had 3 new cases, increasing our running total to 135, albeit if you look at the zip code information, 02840, it indicates that our cases are 124. It's a little bit disconcerting that Middletown had 5 cases. That's increased their total to 82 because, you know, we're one close community, and I'll have a discussion with Sean Brown tomorrow as to what he thinks is going on, how he had that bump in cases. On the issue of masks, we're going to continue to run that marathon. We've given out 4,500 masks to date, approximately, through our volunteers. I'll be procuring more. I'm down to about, I think in my office I have maybe 2,000 masks, those nice cloth ones. The state has promised, as I've indicated to you before, another 8,000 masks. We have good compliance. It's not perfect, but there's very good compliance, and the volunteers are out there constantly at various points and handing out masks. The beaches, they've done well this summer. We're going to keep the security team at Rejects on through September. Easton's will continue to operate. We're going to lose the lifeguards on September 8th, but we'll continue to be open there with staffing the gates until 4 p.m., 5 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll continue to manage the parking lots as we have, using 50% capacity. We'll continue to charge the parking fees. We're going to alter the police detail that we've had down there all summer, just slightly. As I said, we're going to lose the lifeguards September 8th, but we'll continue to do what we've got to do in terms of cleaning and the like. I know that it's kind of interesting, but there's no new trash issues. That's a good thing. The trash issue seems to be under control, so we'll knock on wood. And as I told one of the staff members today, is just get us to Tuesday, and we'll see what next week brings. So every weekend there's something new with regard to what's going on here.
I do want to make a quick correction, Mr. Nicholson, because when I spoke to you yesterday, you said that Labor Day was this coming Monday, and it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah, wishful thinking. I was going to tell you.
Because when you say Tuesday, it's not this coming Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays.
I like this Tuesday and then the following Tuesday too. I know that yesterday was kind of an interesting day. Governor Baker in Massachusetts, when he was discussing the Biogen conference and what's led to this headline today in the Globe, started to discuss contact tracing as well. And he indicated in the conference, in the press conference, that they also traced a spreading event to a wedding in Rhode Island. Of course, that wedding in Rhode Island, from his comments, took on a larger connotation. We had a lot of contact from the media because the media added Newport and it added water to it. I don't have any further information other than that wedding has now turned into a bachelorette party that may or may not have been here. I know that there's some issues floating around on social media that indicates that that bachelorette party was here in late July, and we're just finding out about it now. I reached out to the state yesterday the state decision makers on these things, and they didn't have any information on it either. So I think it was news as well. Let's find something concrete rather than suggestions or things you hear on the media. Apparently the media yesterday indicated that that party had contact with Newport. Again, I don't have any information, direct information on any of this. I was just as surprised to hear the governor of Massachusetts mention Rhode Island and issues with regard to a wedding here in Rhode Island and a problem related there too. I'll get you more information when I have it. I know that a topic that some of you want to talk about is basketball hoops, as simple as it seems. It seems to me that the goal right now should be assisting and getting the kids back to school. Basketball, in many respects, is a secondary issue. But let me tell you what my rationale has been in discussing these things with all of you. Basketball is considered under the guidelines and is indeed a close contact sport. It's the problem that we have here in Newport is our courts are all open. I don't have a gate that we can lock up. I can't close the Rich. I can't close the courts down at Braga Park. I can't close the courts over at the King Center and the like. My biggest fear is young adults and the adults, the 20 to 29 group that is the highest demographic in terms of those that are testing positive. We have no way of controlling what goes on at those courts. And indeed, the guidelines suggest or discuss, if you will, having small, stable groups when you have these types of activities. And indeed, discourage games, if you will, and suggest just practice your skills. There's no way that's going to happen if we put the basketball hoops back up. It's going to be what it should be, basketball, 5-on-5, physical games. It's not going to be stable groups, and it's considered high risk. So that's my rationale. And as much as I hate to suggest or even capitulate to a problem like this, I'm still going to recommend to the council that we keep the hoops down. I was going to write all of you a note, I think it was last week or the week before, but I decided to delete it after I had written it. But there was a good basketball tournament that was organized up in Providence. I watched it on video for a little bit, and it was pretty quality basketball. It was young adults. But then I looked into the background, and there were some fans there. Not one person had a mask on. Not one person was socially distant. And I think in the context of Newport, it's maybe, just maybe, and I don't have any, this is anecdotal, just maybe the little things that we're doing, pushing masks, handing out masks, insisting on masks, and little things like this are having an effect down here with our low positivity rate. If you look in the journal today, the Providence Journal printed some numbers this afternoon. Providence had 243 cases, new cases. Pawtucket 76, Cranston 46, Central Falls 44. We're at the low end of the spectrum with 3. And I think that's a credit, maybe it's a credit to the people that live here in the city of Newport that are taking this virus serious. And so I just wanted to offer that to you because I know the council is concerned, some of your constituents are concerned. And, you know, basketball is a healthy game. It's a great game. It's a wonderful game. I used to play it myself. I wish I could still play it, but it's considered a high contact sport. And it's a high contact sport there's a big risk to it. Maybe I can still play it, but not as well as I can play it. But so that's where I'm on in terms of not putting the hoops back up. I realize other communities have them up. I realize other communities never took them down. But that's been my attitude from the beginning here, is to try to look at the community as a whole and protect the community as a whole, whether the attitude of the city administration is right or wrong. But that's where. And I'd be happy to go over the guidelines with you and quote some of the language, but I don't if we need to get into that.
Thank you. All right, there's a bunch of counselors with their hands up, so I'm just going to go down the list. Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I just sent you a text. If you would just take a quick look at it, you might want to address the topic. But with respect to the basketball and this bachelorette party, I see them related. We see in this bachelorette party what can happen very unexpectedly and very dramatically. 20 people get together for a party and 19 of them end up with COVID. And we don't know if it happened in Newport, but it could have. I think our focus now should be on making sure our schools open, that they don't have to stay closed because there's been any sort of explosion of COVID in our community. And it's only a few weeks, but if we could get the schools open, maybe we can relook the basketball issue. But I wouldn't advise we do anything that could corrupt the ability of our schools to open, because we've had an increase in the COVID incidents. I wanted to ask you one question about the manning of rejects in the beach. Are those costs which we are going to be able to be reimbursed for as COVID-related expenses to the state?
Well, am I going to make a promise that they're going to get reimbursed?
I'm just curious if that, in general.
Are eligible costs, and there are costs that we are loading up and submitting to the, and we keep track of every penny during this pandemic of what we believe should be reimbursed either through FEMA or through a combination of FEMA and the CARES Act funding, in which it could fill the 25% gap. And indeed, I'm going to send to all of you, most likely tomorrow, a potential resolution that urges some of those reimbursement purse strings that the state has tied right now, loosening those purse strings directly for those reimbursements now to municipalities.
Thank you. Councilor McCall.
I just wanted to thank the city manager for addressing the basketball issues. I certainly respect your recommendation on this. I know that there are a bunch of folks who have been asking about that and often comparing, again, Middletown and Portsmouth as kind of that solution. But I'd also like to say, while the hoops are down, there apparently happens to be a new trend of pickleball happening on those courts as well. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor McCall. Councilor Napolitano.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Waste Management. I'm up early Saturday and Sunday mornings, 7 o'clock going down Broadway, and usually following one of their trucks. They've been really, really good about getting out there and getting the trash up. And I just wanted to give a shout out to them, because now their operation is 7 days a week. And that's hard in this environment.
So great point. Thank you, Councilor Napolitano.
I just piggyback on that, because Tim, headed up by Tim Sullivan, has been doing a great job in reacting to the issue, and a great job. So I just wanted to add that to Waste Management.
Okay.
Councilor Leonard. Councilor Leonard, you're muted.
Joe, I have a question after your last comment.
Sure.
You said that we would also be applying to FEMA for funds that have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, it's FEMA. All the reimbursement funds go through a FEMA tracker, and FEMA goes through, or the REMA rather, goes through all the costs. And normally, as I understand it, let's say you $100 for just the reimbursement. If they recognize the cost, they'll give you $75. But
Right, but is it FEMA or is it REMA?
Well, REMA doesn't have any money. It's FEMA.
That's what I'm saying. It's FEMA. So the reason I even ask it is because FEMA, as far as I know, is funded by those who pay premiums for the flood insurance program. I don't know how much the feds put into it, but it seems to me that if FEMA is dispersing funds to communities all over the country, that Newport should start looking ahead as to what maybe the new FEMA premiums will be for all those that are mandated here to have flood insurance.
It's not exclusively funded by flood insurance.
All right.
There's an allocation.
Like I said, I don't know what the feds put into it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. But CARES Act money can be used for reimbursement
Yeah.
as well.
Thanks.
Is there any further discussion on the COVID update? All right, I make a motion that the council adjourn.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. I will hold the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Nicholson, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did, Dustin. I did get your email. I'm sorry. And just as an aside, and you're all aware of this, but we're not going to have fireworks on Labor Day weekend. We've canceled those.
Yeah.
And we've canceled those because of the issues related to the pandemic and the close proximity of people and the like. So thank you for reminding me. There had not been a public announcement on that up until now.
Good note, Councillor McLaughlin. I don't think a lot of us remembered to make that announcement publicly. I'm just going to start from the top again. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor Leonard?
Aye.
Councillor McCallum?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The meeting is adjourned.
So there's some fireworks.
There are the
for you.
fireworks.
Happy birthday, Justin.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday,
Oh,
Justin.
happy birthday.
But that's what
Thank
the
you all. Thank you.
Thank you.